I do want to answer Gary's question while you have it up here, Mark. What if IU nudges by Iowa, then Iowa knocks off Iowa State in the Cy-Hawk game? Worst case scenario if you're a Hawkeye fan. Worst case scenario completely. The Iowa State game means nothing from a Big Ten standpoint. It's not a Big Ten game yet. I say yet because I still think there's a chance Iowa State joins the Big Ten in the coming years, but that's for a different discussion. But if IU nudges Iowa, you're 0-1 in the Big Ten, and so you have bragging rights for what, the 7th straight year in the Cy-Hawk rivalry. So that would not be a good thing, Gary. I think if you're an Iowa fan, no question about it, you'd rather lose the Cy-Hawk game. I know some Hawkeye fans will put that game above everything else, but again, if you're talking about goals, that would be the worst case scenario because you lose to Indiana. Not only are you hurting yourself in the Big Ten race, I don't see an 11-1 Iowa team making the playoff, and I'm not saying the playoff should be a goal of Iowa fans this year, but you're probably not making the playoff at 11-1. If you didn't make the playoff at 12-1 in 2015, minus the outstretched arm of LJ Scott from Michigan State, you're probably not making it at 11-1 this year. So that would not be a good scenario, at least in my opinion.
You don't think an Iowa team with wins against Iowa State, Wisconsin, obviously you're throwing a loss in there to someone, as a Big Ten champion, so they will have beaten, I'll have Jim cover his ears for a second, maybe a top 5 Ohio State team in the Big Ten championship game, or an Indiana team that's paved the road to Indianapolis. You don't think that a Big Ten champion Iowa team with one loss?
I guess I really wasn't entertaining the idea of, I said 11-1. I guess 12-1, including a win over Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. I think there may be some reconsideration there. I just know in 2015, at least the general consensus was Iowa had to beat Michigan State. Now the schedule was weaker, I think, that year, but Iowa did get a win on the road at a ranked Wisconsin team where everybody knows it's tough to play in Madison. So I would like to think that, especially early, I think kind of like the NCAA tournament, I don't think it's quite as crucial with college football, but when you lose early, you'd like to think it doesn't hurt you as much as a late loss in the season. But I still say I'd rather lose to Iowa State than Indiana, no question.
But if they lose to Indiana and finish 11-1, they will have the opportunity to win the 12th game because they will have to have won the division because they will have beaten Wisconsin.
That's true. That's true.
Why do they have divisions of the Big Ten?
What's the question, Jim?
Why do we even have divisions of the Big Ten?
You want a 14-team lineup in the Big Ten?
Well, that doesn't matter who you lose against. It's still they're not set up that way. It's not set up to. You could lose to Iowa and it cost you the division title, rather it being someone in your division. I think it should just be the losses in the division.
Why don't we just redistribute the divisions every year?
Definitely need to do that. Yes.
And do that based on projections, based on returning talent. Mark, this is a new topic for discussion.
Boy,
maybe this will catch on.
That would be not. Ooh, man.
Is this a serious
Wouldn't that be nice?
proposal?
Like a seating. Man, you can't think of the committee for that. Are you kidding me?
Everybody knocks the Big Ten West. Everybody knocks the Big Ten West. Let's redistribute it. Let's just.
It definitely needs to be changed.
Let's not go back to Legends leaders.
I don't knock the Big Ten West. I actually think the Big Ten West has raised the game in recent years, and it's more balanced than the Big Ten East.
Oh my gosh, there's no way.
More balanced than the Big Ten East.
You've only got who's going to be good in the West this year besides Wisconsin and Iowa. I mean, Minnesota,
not Nebraska.
Oh, obviously. I mean, their coach may not even make it throughout the season.
Big Ten Network said this was the best Minnesota team they had seen in their history of going to Minneapolis preseason. I don't want to. I saw there was a Gopher fan on here tonight. That stood out to me.
If you run the win-loss numbers between the two divisions, it's almost equal. And we know Ohio State's hardly ever losing to anyone. And we know Rutgers and mostly Maryland are losing almost every game. The Big Ten Western Division's more balanced. They just lose the championship game all the time. To almost the same team every time.
But the scales are not quite equal there, Mark, right? I mean, you're playing 2/3 of your Big Ten schedule against your own division. So
sure.
I don't think you can carry that equal weight. I know we're kind of going off on a tangent here, but I mean, Jim pointed out I've never heard this idea before, but you kind of got me brainstorming here.
They got to do something. It's. I know you guys don't think it is, but most people, and I agree, it is imbalanced. It's always, and it's not because of Ohio State, because they heavyweight anything. Well, no, they would overweight anything if they were in any. They're in a different league than anybody right now. Than that's in the Big Ten. I mean, Penn State is as close to them as anybody else. Wisconsin's just not as consistent enough to be there. Penn State just hasn't won enough. But Ohio State is in a different echelon than anybody else in the league right now. And that includes Michigan, who hasn't beat them since, Abraham Lincoln was in the White House now, it seems like. So they're kind of running away. Is anyone ever someone has to beat Ohio State at some point?
Well, the division will get a lot more balanced, Jim, if Ohio State leaves for the SEC. So I guess
that's not going to happen.
All right. It might not, but it would balance it out, wouldn't it?
Your idea is solely because Ohio State exists. Is that why you came up with this idea? Is that the reason?
You talking to me?
Yes. So
Jim, no.
Okay. You want a 1 through 14, no divisions, 1 through 14, the top two teams in the conference, a la the Big 12, go to the conference championship.
No, I'm not saying they could do that. I'm not saying that that's realistic. But the current divisional lineups, if you're going to have divisions, then make them divisions. Make them just like the divisional losses are what hurt you on whether or not you win or lose a division. The Big Ten just counts everything.
Well, everyone counts everything. How would you weight? That would be really confusing to people. What are you going to give extra weight to a loss within the division?
Well, then you're giving weight to a division. So
I see his point here, Mark. I'm not saying I agree with that portion of it. I see his point.
I see his point, but I think it's just difficult and confusing for people to track. Oh, we just lost a division game. What is it going to be worth? Like 1.75 wins or losses?
Man, all they got is numbers are flying everywhere today. So just one more little column's not going to hurt anything. They got numbers everywhere. They see that's just another betting source.
I was with you.
The over and under for the divisional games now.
Jim, I was with you for the first 2 minutes of that, and then you kind of lost me there at the end.
Well, let's bring it back to 2021 and IU and Iowa. I'll ask you this, Jim, since we did mention the elephant in the conference. What separates Ohio State and Indiana in your eyes in a game based on interpretation last year that Indiana fans and some observers will point to 42-35, one-score game? Others will say Ohio State got a little loose with it in the fourth quarter. Where is Indiana
got loose with it? Indiana turned the ball over
to that degree, and where do they need to continue to improve to reach that status?
The first is just easy. It's always depth. Ohio State is so deep, and when I say that, people don't understand. The bottom of their bottom are Division I starters at a lot of schools. I'm not saying at Alabama and or Auburn, but they're Division I starters at schools. That's what they have just in a row. That's why they're able to turn out these quarterbacks after quarterbacks that are protected by these linemen that all go to the NFL, because it's a factory. Clemson has become a factory. Alabama has become a factory, and they've done it well. And it's not a complaint against them. They're just doing it better to a higher level right now. I wonder how can some teams catch them, but Indiana has done it the old fashioned way, as hard as I don't know how else to say it, but they're just from the bootstraps up. And Tom Allen has built that program with kids that were cast-offs. Michael McFadden was a two-star. He's an All-American. That's talent development, and that's what Indiana has to do. They rely on developing talent. They rely on finding nuggets and developing those into diamonds. and that's what they've done. But it's also, it has to be this fit that Tom Allen has created in his culture, and he does not waver. It doesn't matter. It has to be the right fit. I've heard him say it too many times. I've been around too many of the players and spoken to them and interviewed them and talked to them. They're all on the same page. I mean, and that is a powerful, powerful thing. I have never seen a group in athletics more on the same page than the Indiana football program. And it's cool to see. Because it's a positive thing. Everything they do is in a positive way. They're thinking about the team, and so everything that they're geared towards is positive and winning. And they're in it together. And now they have talent and coaching to go with that. And so that's a lot of ingredients that just wasn't always there in Bloomington, and now it is. And I think you're going to see a hell of a game on Saturday. But I think that Indiana, I think the reason that Iowa's only a 3.5-point favorite, I think that is a compliment to Indiana, because to me, if you're only giving up 3 points at home, that's a tiebreaker. That's a coin flip to me. So that tells me Vegas says, yeah, Indiana's a little stronger than people think. I think Indiana is a hell of a lot better than Iowa people think. I think that they could be in for a shock. This offense is fast. Indiana has a running game that they have not had. That's something else we haven't talked about yet. They added Stephen Carr from USC, and Delon McCullough back in the fold, as I talked about. Those are just gigantic pieces to add to an offense. The running game has not hurt them in the last couple of years. It just has not helped them. If that makes sense. It hasn't done anything. It just, there was no long runs. There's no getting you out of trouble. Stevie Scott, he could kind of bulldoze through for a little bit, but that was about it, man. I mean, that doesn't work. You've got to have more there, and they have that now. They have a little more, even though they lost Samson James, who that was a blow, and of course they lose him to Purdue to add insult to injury. But yeah, they're more complete now. The offensive line is more mature and it's older now.
I will say this: you brought up the run, and I have no doubt that the run game has improved, but Stephen Carr hasn't taken a snap in an Indiana Hoosier uniform yet. So, and I read today that he is the starter. Correct, Jim?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Keep him on the depth chart.
I don't know. I haven't looked into, and maybe you and Mark have a better idea of this than I do. I really haven't looked at what Stephen Carr did at USC. But, Iowa does bring, reigning first team All Big Ten running back Tyler Goodson to the table here on Saturday as well. I don't think Iowa fans are going to be surprised if Iowa loses this game by. I'll be surprised if Iowa loses this game by 2 scores. But if Iowa loses at home, I'm not surprised. I don't think most Iowa fans are surprised. Like, there's a lot of Iowa fans who are still calling for Spencer Petras to be benched, and maybe that's just because fans are delusional. Not calling Iowa fans delusional, so don't hate on me for this. But I think that's absurd to even think about that at this point. But I just don't think Iowa fans, if they win this game, believe me, it'll be bring on Alabama, bring on Clemson, heading into that Iowa State game. But I think you're selling yourself a little bit short there, Jim. I think the respect, at least here in Iowa, is very high for that program right now.
And it very well may be, but and I think it goes back to we talked earlier about this game being one of those that just overlooked, and I'm like, how are you missing out on this? This is a great game. It's just you got Kirk Ferentz, man, and that's Iowa. It's Iowa, and Indiana is its own story now. How just continue. And someone asked about college game day, and you got all the relationship stuff that comes involved with all that. But yeah, I'm like, how are you ignoring this game? What a great game. It just it doesn't matter. I'll be there to watch it. So they're missing out.
I agree. I agree. I go back to the narrative. I just doesn't seem like anybody's talking about this game. So I give Mark a lot of credit for making this show happen. And who does Indiana have week 2, Jim?
Week 2, they come back to play Idaho. That's so they get a little breather.
Yeah, but there is a bit of I don't want to call it an edge. I don't know if it's an edge or not, but I kind of feel like, at least from the media's perspective, and I'm sure the coaching staff is taking one game at a time, as I'm sure Don Patterson would advocate for. But Iowa gets Iowa State week 2 on the road, potentially. I predicted this many months ago. Heard rumblings that game day is at least a strong possibility if Iowa takes care of business this Saturday. So there is a bit of a difference.
I read that somewhere today.
And I don't know if the players are lumping these two games in together, but I think if I'm a fan of either one of these two teams, I'd rather play Idaho. I'd rather have a game like Idaho week 2 than a game like Iowa State. I'm not saying they're looking ahead. That would be foolish to look ahead. But I just think it potentially clouds your focus a bit, even unintentionally. I don't know if there's any substance to that, but I guess that's my naive thinking on it.
This is going to sound cliche, but they don't earmuffs and blinders. Another thing, by being around these guys at Big Ten Media Days, again, when we were getting to actually sit there and talk to them and interview them face to face, they are all, to a man, just talked about earmuffs and blinders, that they keep the noise out. And again, they are all, to a man. They are one. They are a unit. And there's nothing more powerful than that. I think that's just, it's blowing my mind how together they've stayed and how they view everything as far as positivity, like I've said. But you got to have talent, and you got to win, and you got to do the things that you have to do to win. But that's the thing about this team. They have a ton of talent, and I don't know what side they're more talented on, defensively or offensively. It's really hard to tell because they've got All-Americans on both sides of the ball. And it's going to be fun to watch. And against an Iowa team that is always tough defensively, I'm wondering what their front is going to be like, if that's going to be able to sustain or hold Indiana, and then vice versa. Is Indiana's defensive line, they have to get to the quarterback. While Indiana has a great secondary, you can't leave guys out just to run around. You have to put pressure on them and get him down. And we'll see who handles that. Is this going to be a game that they score many points? Probably not. It's not what Iowa likes to do, but Indiana does. So Indiana is, last year, I think, averaged 30 points. I think they're going to be a quick strike offense. First game, it's hard to be sharp. It's hard to have it all ready, but I would not be surprised if Indiana 28, 30-point range in this game. That's hard to do on the road in now Kinnick Stadium, but it's going to be interesting.
I don't have the stat in front of me, Jim, but and I'm sure, Mark, you can pull this up quickly, but Iowa leads the nation in a number of straight games where they've held an opponent to under 24 points. I believe it's at 22 right now.
Wow, that's a great stat.
I believe it's at 22 right now. And the second, I think BYU is next in line, and I think they're in the single digits for straight games they've held an opponent that low. So, yeah,
what was the low, Mark?
24, I believe.
Wow, that's a great stat.
Yeah, in fact, Big Ten Network posted a graphic about that today on social media. But it is, but again, strength against strength. And I think what we saw last year from Iowa is Iowa has the ability to score points if the running game is working. And I think there's a misconception across the country, I've been saying this for a long time, that Iowa is an elite rushing attack. All right. They've missed on a lot of running backs who have gone on to be, Eno Benjamin, Melvin Gordon, Breece Hall, who now, of course, we know all about Breece Hall at Iowa State, and go on and on and on. So they've been a running back away for many, many years of being elite. But we saw last year with an elite running back, Tyler Goodson, and elite guard play, they were pretty darn elite last year running the football. So if they're elite this year, I could see this game. We've seen Iowa State games go into the 40s. We had games last year going to the 40s. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, because I think both sides of the ball from both ends, from the Indiana perspective and the Iowa perspective, It's a very unpredictable game as far as scoreline, but I think regardless, it's going to be a close contest, no question.
It should be. I definitely, obviously, I think Indiana wins this game. I don't know what my score is yet. I don't know if I'm even close to thinking what that score is going to be yet. I don't know enough about Iowa. I'll be honest with you. I haven't delved into their defense enough. The offense, I know everyone knows about Petrus, but what do they have coming back as far as the running game?
Well, you've got Tyler Goodson. You lose Mekhi Sargent, who is just tearing it up right now in preseason, was tearing it up for the Titans. Any Iowa fan knows that. He's been incredible. Actually, I think he's got a good chance of making that 53-man roster when undrafted. So they lose him, but you bring back a guy who is also coming off injury in Ivory Kelly Martin. You bring back the reigning first-team All-Big Ten running back in Tyler Goodson. You have the best center in the country in Tyler Linderbaum. But again, you have 2 new tackles potentially. Jack Plum may, if he got some starts last year, maybe he ends up starting. You've got guards who have snaps under them, but again, shots out. Cody Ince should be healthy. Justin Britt's played. They've got guys enough to where I'm confident that they can pick up the slack running the football.